is the relation to maybe not even the film, but to that time, you know?
You mean as far as... Like, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, like, so you got 1992.
Right.
September and October of 1992.
Right.
We both have stories that are specifically dedicated to that time. Not to Under Siege specifically, but that time. And a lot of these movies are like time capsules for us in that time. I just think that's really, like I mentioned earlier, once again, if you have a story around Under Siege, or maybe the box office of September, October of 1992, BB Karate Podcast at gmail.com. Let us know your story. We'd love to read a few of them in an episode or something. Yeah,
definitely. I think I hear where you're at, like, as far as, you know, whenever I think now, like, let's just take, for example, real quick, I think of Tenet, and it's my favorite movie that I've seen in so long. And I've seen it numerous times, but I wonder, like, I even caught myself thinking about this the other day, will, 10-year-old, 11-year-old me, maybe, I mean, I know Tenet's a deeper film than Under Siege, but, I mean, will a teenager see Tenet, for the first time and think about it, 25 years down the road and think about, like, man, those were the good times, seeing Tenet in the theater, or not even seeing Tenet in the theater.
And I don't know if we'll ever get the feeling that you and I have, or hopefully people listening have as well,
right,
to the decade of movies that we're sort of latching on to because there's no wait time.
No, yeah.
I mean, other than seeing a movie in the theater, which I hope comes back, but you never have to wait. Like, once it's out, you don't need to go to the video store. It's there. You can buy it without ever leaving your... There's no sense of urgency to see it.
Right.
So I don't know what that takes away from... Oh, Under Siege is released on video tomorrow, and I know my name is on the list at my primetime video, and it's going to be reserved for me.
Right.
You never have to do that anymore. It's a click. It's immediate gratification.
Yeah, and not just that. I mean, it was, one, the movie, but it was, two, just the event of it. It's the theater was an event, and it's not an event anymore. No. I mean, it is an event in itself. Like, you go to these 16 Cineplex, theaters that are huge, and they have
reclining
seats, and you can order your food, or they have this huge menu. But I mean, back then, in the 90s and late 80s, I mean, when it was really humping, when it was really hopping.
Okay, either
I wanted to say hopping, but I said humping. And you think back then, and I mean, it was an event. Like, you think about what you're going to wear. What am I going to wear to Under Siege? Because
especially at that age,
I don't know who I'm going to see.
Exactly. That's why you're sitting in the back. And you can imagine me. I still, to this day, when I go see movies, and folks, it's not a big deal, but sometimes I still will hear, "Move your big fucking head." So you can imagine how much I love reclining seats.
Because your head has only gotten bigger.
It hasn't. You think people grow into their head? My head has grown outside of my body. Right. It sits on both right and left of my shoulders. Anyway, enough about the nostalgics. Let's get to the basics of this movie. This movie, as I said, was released October 9th, 1982. Budget of around $35 million. And I gotta say, it looks like they used every penny of that.
Yeah, you think $35 million, and now, of course, that's not a lot. I mean, in the theater or the movie sense, but $35 million back then, I mean, that's got to be close.
$50 million.
Yeah, $50 million, $80 million, somewhere around there. And yeah, I mean, what they perceived the movie to be, like, as someone watching it, not knowing what went on behind it, it's amazing. Like,
it looks incredible.
Yeah.
It looks like a $100 million movie.
Yeah.
Opening weekend, it got almost half of its budget back, $15 million in that opening weekend. It was in 2,248 theaters, so that is a massive release. Stayed in the theater for 91 days. Total gross in the U.S. was $83,563,139. Today, I would venture to guess that is a $100 million movie.
Oh, yeah, easily. And especially, when you think with VHS sales back then, right after that.
So the cumulative worldwide gross, which I would imagine... no, I don't know if this includes VHS sales or not, but just worldwide gross over $156 million. This is a bona fide hit.
Oh, yeah.
Warner Brothers is thrilled. It runs a crisp 103 minutes. As we said before, and we're not going to play, we're not going to play a lot of interviews here, but we do want to play this. This is how Siskel and Ebert felt about it. And Ebert will rip a movie apart.
He will. And it's like, it was surprising to hear. I get surprising yet not surprising. I mean, I knew going in that it was reviewed well, but even I never watched Siskel and Ebert's review of it. And,
it's like the New York Times and Siskel and Ebert, I always assume give a negative review to a movie I like. So when I was doing the research and they just they're praising it so much, I was thrilled. So let's go ahead and play Siskel and Ebert reviewing Under Siege from their television show, which I used to love. I would never find it like, oh, I know when it's coming on.
Oh, no.
I felt like I would just come across it and just watch.
It was like an Easter egg back then. Yeah.
It really was. I mean, I love previews so much, and that's all the show really is, and then them just talking about it and getting to see some fun clips. Right. So let's take a look at their interview, or take a listen, right now.
Coming up next, a review of the most popular film in America right now, Steven Seagal in Under Siege.
I'm thrilled to death to hear that, yeah.
That's Steven Seagal, of course, in Under Siege, and to date, approximately 6 million people have already seen this film, and I'm sure that makes 6 million satisfied customers, because Under Siege is simply wonderful, an exciting and funny and totally energized action picture with a pair of terrific villains and a very funny hero. Seagal, of course, is the hero, a Navy cook who knows more than just how to stir up good grub. He finds himself on a nuclear warhead-loaded battleship in the Pacific that is suddenly under attack from an American-led terrorist group. Tommy Lee Jones is the bad guy in charge, a disaffected CIA agent.
You really think blowing up a bunch of innocent people is going to change anything? Who made you flip like this?
I got tired of coming up with last-minute desperate solutions to impossible problems created by other people.
Jones has either killed or locked up everybody on the ship except ex-Navy SEAL Seagal and a Playboy playmate, Erica Eleniak, who has been brought on board for a party.
Tell you what, I'll carry everything. You kill whoever we run into, all right?
I have a little rule about killing people. Well, actually, I have 2 rules. See, 1, I don't date musicians, and 2, I do not kill people, okay?
Under Siege is a lot of fun. I've been recommending it to men and women alike, stressing it for women, as a matter of fact. There's such a joy to the filmmaking and the performances that it doesn't seem all that violent. Tommy Lee Jones, as always, is a credible villain, and Steven Seagal seems more human than ever before. Obviously, I strongly recommend Under Siege. It's one of the best times you're going to have at a movie this year. It was one of mine.
And I completely agree with you. And when I saw the trailer for this movie, I thought, here we go, Die Hard goes to sea. I thought I could predict the whole movie, and in a way, I could predict the whole movie, but it was really fun because of the performances. Yeah. And I think you ought to mention the director, Andrew Davis, because this guy is unsung.
Yes.
And he made Code of Silence, which is the best Chuck Norris picture. He made Above the Law, Seagal's first film. He made The Package with Gene Hackman. He is an extremely efficient action director who here takes a situation that looks completely predictable. Yeah. And as you say, he has a lot of fun with it.
Well, it is mounted very well. And when that movie term means it's big scale. Yeah. The shots, what I'm really impressed with is Andrew Davis and his editor. They lay the shots in just when you need them. You're saying, hey, wait a minute, what's happening down at the other end of the ship? And bang, if he isn't there with that shot and picking up that action. The fun of this, we have great casting. We've been Tommy Lee Jones fans for years.
Well, Tommy Lee Jones is a terrific villain here. The surprise is Erica Eleniak as the Playboy playmate, because it's the kind of character in an action picture that is completely extraneous. Right. Here you have all these guys shooting each other and introduce Miss July of 1989, who has nothing to do with anything and knows it. And she just follows him around, and she's going to hide behind him, and then she learns in the course of an hour or 2 how to be capable and strong, and it's a terrific change there.
And you can see that this actress is actually playing a part. This isn't a documentary. She's very funny. She knows. It is. She uses the kind of Valley speak a little bit that you might expect. It's a wonderful film. Really great fun.
So, as I said, they loved it.
It's, I mean, unanimously, too. It's, if you don't find, usually, it's hard to find Siskel liking one and Ebert not liking it or liking it as well. But both, I mean, just praise Seagal, praise, of course, Busey and Tommy Lee Jones. Yeah. But everybody, like we've talked about, carries this film. I mean, everybody does their part.
And Busey and Jones got a lot of the critical praise. You know, people would mention Seagal and they'd say, oh, he carries the role well, but they were really into Tommy Lee Jones and Busey. And tell me you can't watch this movie, me personally, watch Tommy Lee Jones and not see Two-Face. I think it was like an audition for Two-Face for him. It must have been.
I think it's like the hair, the disheveled hair that he's got, the jacket and everything too. Yeah, it always brings that back. And I mean, when was Forever? When did that come out? 95? 90? No,
People
that had come out
like
96, 97, I think.
Batman Forever.
I think that was 96, 97.
It was 95. 95. Good call,
okay,
big guy.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, not far after, 5 years after, and in that time frame, this was 92, right? Mm-hmm. So he had just come off of JFK too, correct? Or has he?
Oh, he was an Oscar nominated actor.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, okay. And yeah, you can definitely see it in there, and they had to see this movie.
He crushes this movie. The reviews of positivity weren't limited to Siskel and Ebert. I mean, the LA Times liked it, Variety, Hollywood Reporter, the Chicago Tribune, all praise the movie in some capacity. Of course, they have their gripes about it. Warner Brothers had a huge year this year. I mean, not only do they have this tentpole, and this is another $100 million movie. They had Unforgiven. We're talking Oscars here. That was huge. Batman Returns, wonderful movie. Mm-hmm. Lethal Weapon 3 with Pesci as Benny Getz.
Benny Getz,
Benny Getz. You need it. Benny Getz. Yeah. Great movie. So Warner Brothers was riding high, and they loved this movie. Seagal, up to this point, we mentioned this earlier, hadn't done a lot of movies. He had done some really fun movies that I love, but this was his sixth movie. Up to this point, Above the Law, Hard to Kill, Marked for Death, Out for Justice, and once again, they briefly considered renaming Under Siege to
Last to Surrender.
Because they wanted to keep the three-word title thing going. There were a lot of when the celebrities were making the press in this movie, they were doing the press circuit. The celebrities of this movie, I should say, Tommy Lee Jones, Gary Busey, Steven Seagal, all three of them did not fail to give some weird-ass interviews.
Yeah, it is almost comical to the point, and we'll put them up on our social media pages too, so you guys can look at them. But it is like, it's almost like they got together and talked about how they were going to do these interviews.
Let's really fuck with people and not give a straight answer to anything.
Yeah. And these were common questions. I mean, these were very thoughtful interviews that they were given. They weren't making fun of anything. They were very, just curiosity asking about.
And the weird thing is, like, the person who comes off as the least asshole and still comes off as an asshole is Steven Seagal.
Yeah.
And I would expect that to be Tommy Lee Jones. Like, they ask these questions that are open-ended because they probably want to engage in conversation, and it's just Tommy Lee Jones is answering with a question.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Well, what did you think?
Well, of course I did. It was Steven Seagal. Of course I had fun. Yeah.
It's a fun movie. Well, great. Yeah. Let me go take my dick out of my hand or something. And once again, they're just enormous. So, first of all, Steven Seagal's interview with Arsenio, which we'll post, he talks about his theory on where AIDS comes from.
Interesting theory. Interesting.
He talks about whether or not he's going to vote. Spoiler alert, Steven Seagal will not vote. It's a strange interview all around. Gary Busey, of course, is classic Gary Busey. His interview.
Yeah. It makes me wonder, like, what is the point in an actor's career when they think just like, this is how I think from now on? Like, Steven Seagal, from the time he was a kid to the time, he's 15, 18, whatever, thought one way. And, before Marked for Death or Above the Law, before he started getting into film, it's like, what point do you turn, or especially Gary Busey, and just think, like, this is how I think now. Mm-hmm. Like, and I've always wondered, like, why hasn't that happened to me? Why haven't I just come to my wife one day and been just this asshole existential guy who just has turned a switch, and I guess money makes you do it?
Celebrity, maybe?
I mean, of course it is, but I just wonder if there's this one
thing.
As a kid, like, even I thought, like, is there this one person that these celebrities go to who just fucking turns them into
what
these
makes
people?
Gary Busey sort of situation?
Yeah.
When did he become Gary Busey?
Right.
And it certainly was before 1992, because he was very Busey in this interview that he gives about character and stuff. I will say he